It seemed as though two of the guys that she was seeing, it seemed as though they were poised to go out and shoot
I'm
me.
fearful that without protection from the court, he will continue to intimidate me.
Sorry, Your Honor, I have bad connection issues at where I live by Summit Lake. Is it working okay?
Yeah,
Seems to be on this end.
Yeah, let's see how well it does. For now, it seems to be okay. All right, so we're going to go ahead and proceed with your hearing. So let me explain to you just quickly how this works. So what I'm going to do is swear both of you in, and then Ms. Menzies, you're the petitioner here. You'll get to go first and present your case. That means you can testify yourself. You can refer to exhibits that you've previously filed, and you can call any witnesses that you may have brought with you. After I hear from you, then Mr. Abbey, it'll be your turn to do the same thing. Testify yourself. Point out any exhibits that you think are important, or if you have any witnesses, they can testify. After I've heard from both of you, I'll make a decision on whether or not the protection order that was previously issued ex parte will continue in any form. And I'll explain to you why that is, why the basis for my decision. Okay, so we're going to get started here. Both of you, please raise your right hands. And do you both swear that the testimony that you give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I do.
All right. Now, Ms. Menzies, you get to go first, and call this as case 24-377. And keep in mind that everything that you filed already, and the petition that you filed is already part of the record, so it's not necessary for you to repeat everything that's been said in writing before or filed before. But go ahead and Ms. Menzies, and tell me your side of it.
Thank you, Your Honor. I don't have any additional evidence or anything other than what you already have to provide to the court today, nor do I have any witnesses. I just have a prepared statement. This has been extremely difficult for me, so I just want to read this. And
okay.
I'm requesting this order against Baron Abbey due to the very significant emotional, psychological, and physical harm I've suffered. I'd like to share with the court the ongoing impact that this abuse has had in my life, and why I fear for my safety if this order is not granted. Since experiencing these incidents, the last one being on 9/15, which you have evidence of, that is the last one, but it certainly was not the first one. The physical attacks, the verbal assaults, and the constant fear that I experience have caused me tremendous psychological and physical effects, anxiety, depression, sleeplessness. I carry a permanent scar on my face from Mr. Abbey, his injuries inflicted on me. I'm fearful that without protection from the court, he will continue to intimidate me, harass me, and spread vicious rumors about me on social media and through my friends and family, preventing me from feeling secure and safe in my daily life. This abuse has affected me in every aspect of my life. I've had a difficult time going to work, working for a full day, interacting with my friends and family, and even carrying out just everyday tasks, going to visit friends who live in the vicinity of Mr. Abbey, and being fearful that he will see me or find me. I have been afraid to be home alone. I'm just requesting this restraining order, not just for my protection, but also for the hope of reclaiming a sense of normalcy in my life and some security. I fear that without this order, I am going to be at continued risk of harm from Baron Abbey, and I ask the court to help ensuring my safety in granting this order so I can begin to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Menzies. All right, Mr. Abbey, it's your turn to tell me your side of it.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor. Darcel and I had a loving relationship for several years now, 4 years, and for the last, 2 years or so, she'd been living with me at my home. I began to suspect there was problems though going on, and I had no way to know what they were. So I actually had used some recording device, a high-end recording device, to figure out what went on when I left the home. And I found out some astonishing things, and I confronted Miss Menzies about it, and she would not answer any questions about it. This continued for, something like 9 months. But things were rosy in the garden for the most part. The summer came. We'd go to the lake and enjoy ourselves and did some crafts and things that we enjoyed. But I started listening to some of these recordings and things were going on that were inexplicable to me. Number one, she was whispering continuously to people that it made no sense to me, and she would not acknowledge that when I confronted her about that. And it wasn't until after I'd asked her to leave on or about the 15th, I think it was more like the 16th, but that I began to be able to put these recordings on the hi-fi stereo and listen to them and actually get some sense of what was being said in the recordings. I don't wish to go into great detail about what I learned about it, so I want for the welfare for Ms. Menzies to be able to continue working and to not have her life upset in that way. And as for that incident she says it was on the 15th, I think it was on the 16th actually. What had happened was we got into a great big argument involving these recordings. Now, on these recordings, I was hearing men come and go into my house, and this would detail by the door opening and the footsteps coming in or going up and down the stairs after I left. And I confronted her about this, and she just said that it was fake, that it was all my imagination. And so we got into a big heated argument about that. And it was near the end of that argument at that time. Mrs. Menzies was very heated up when we were talking about that, and maintained it was none of it was true, which, you know, I had referenced and gone back to some of these recordings, and these things started a year ago, and it upset me greatly. I wanted to find some kind of resolve to this. But I consider myself a very forgiving person. I mean, there's one incident happened in March, sir, Your Honor, that I was convinced that she was cheating on me and or seeing somebody else or something. It turns out I was right. But at the time, I backpedaled and said, I made a statement on Facebook to my shame that because I think personal business should be kept personal, but I'm kind of a loner out here where I live, far from the city. Anyway, to get not stray too far from the story, I backpedaled and said, oh, no, it was all my fault. Sorry, everybody. You know, I love Darcy. She's a good person. And anyway, moving back forward, I found out that this had been going on for a year, and she would not address it. She wouldn't explain to me what was going on. The more I learned about these recordings, and the better I was able to use my knowledge of sound systems and music, which is the only reason, by the way, I was able to create a zip file. And I had to handwrite the other things because I don't have computer knowledge the way Ms. Menzies does, and most other people actually. But it reached a crescendo at that point because I knew that there was men coming and going, and that it was all just whispers. I could only pick up little bits of what was being said and done, and it really upset me greatly. And she continued to deny that, and we got into an argument. At some point, the argument had reached the level of where we weren't communicating very well together, and Ms. Menzies just started screaming at the top of her lungs. Almost, I don't really want to describe it but it was like a child that wasn't getting what she wanted, and she was screaming at the top of her lungs continuously. The time between breaths was barely noticeable, and even though my neighbors are about 400 feet away, and we have pretty spacious areas to live out here, but not on the lake, mind you, but up the hill, I had great concern for my welfare, as she sounded as though she was being murdered. And at this point, I didn't know what to do. And so what I thought of was, I saw this cup of water. I reached down, grabbed the cup of water. She didn't seem to be. I was telling her, please stop. You know, people would think that I'm abusing you or murdering you or something, and I haven't laid a hand on you. And she kept screaming. It's really difficult for me to try to explain how loud it was, because it was extremely loud as one could possibly scream. And it just kept going on and on, kind of like, only at such high volume. I didn't know what to do. And in fear for my own safety and welfare, I grabbed a cup of water and thought that I could splash some water on her. Maybe she'd snap out of it and come back to earth and quit being hysterical. And what happened was, I grabbed the mug of water. It was an insulated mug. I went to splash some on her, and the mug slipped from my hand, and it bounced right against her nose, and it started bleeding. And I said, "Oh my God, I'm sorry, honey. I'm sorry. It was an accident." And so I went and ran and grabbed a washcloth, and it was a horrible accident. I had no intention of her being hurt by that. I just wished that she would stop screaming. But anyway, we kind of got past that, although I couldn't get past the fact that she'd been inviting men into the house, and it seemed very likely that they were doing something other than just talking. And anyway, so by the next morning, I wanted her to leave that night, actually. But after that happened, I sort of backed off, and she explained to me she would ruin my life if I kicked her out that night. or if I made her leave that night, she had kicked her out. I don't know if that'd be the right term if I made her leave. And so I backed off. But the next morning I insisted that she leave because I knew that there had been men in the house, and she promised me that there'd never been any men in the house. She never cheated on me, and all these things that I thought were in my imagination or something. I knew this wasn't to be true. And well, since then, I listened to the tape some more, and at one point, it seemed as though two of the guys that she was seeing, excuse me for a moment, it seemed as though they were poised to go out and shoot me. To my astonishment, when I heard this recording, I was still trying to figure out who were these people she was seeing. And she had called him back and said something like, "It's not the right time yet." And at that point, I was practically horrified. Now, this had occurred 6 weeks earlier, but I called the police then and got a restraining order against Miss Menzies. And I didn't go to the temporary hearing, though, Judge. I had some hope that her and I could work this out between us, and believed that we could do that, in fact, and that wouldn't have to involve everyone else. And I still, I still think that we can work things out. I just know that we can't be together because of the things I experienced. And I'm sorry for her difficulties, but I got a restraining order against her. I felt my life was in danger at that point. I didn't know what her intentions were. I didn't know what the intentions were of these men that have been into my house because she said it had never been. And but at some point, before the temporary hearing, at that point, we still contacting each other. She was not being responsive to working anything out to resolve the problem that we had between us. And now on she and that I had training order, which I think is for a lot of one of the people that was holding on at point seems poised to going to attack me. Although she ordered him down, it seemed to me too. These things sound incredible, but that's what I heard. And I asked Miss Menzies about it, and she would not explain or give me any answer about anything or admit anything about anything. So we're left at that.
Mr. Abbey,
Yes.
I want you to kind of stop right here. You're getting to the point where you're repeating yourself, and so I want you to just take a minute or two and close this up, and then I'll make a decision.
Okay. All right. Very well. Well, Miss Menzies, I believe, responded by getting a restraining order against me since I'd had one against her, and then came up with this list of grievances, things that I had done. Now, she was doing things that she wasn't supposed to be doing while working, in my opinion. And having people in my house, she said that she wouldn't never have. There was never any men in my house except for a couple of times. We lived way out in the sticks. Well, I went back and listened to all the recordings. There was men in the house every single time. And I had a hard time reconciling that. But so I just know that we can't be together. I think she ordered the hearing or the protection order as a response to my doing it. And if I hadn't done it, we would have ironed this out somehow, although it would have been bumpy. But that's about where it sits. And I'll hand it back to you, Judge.
All right.
You know what I mean?
I've heard from both sides. I reviewed the material that's been submitted by both parties. It's clear to me, far beyond the preponderance of the evidence standard that I'm applying, that Ms. Menzies was a victim of domestic violence. That's substantiated not only by the things that she said in her petition and repeated many of them today under oath, but also the photograph that she submitted in support of her assertion that she'd been assaulted. And that photograph certainly supports that. I've reviewed the evidence submitted by Mr. Abbey as well, which consists of some very faint recordings, none of which substantiate anything that he's claimed, and for the most part are not useful because there's nothing that can really be discerned on these recordings. So as a result of this, I'm finding that domestic violence has occurred and that it is appropriate that an order should be issued and continued. And I will issue that at this time for the next year.
Excuse me, Judge, may I say something?
Keep in mind, I've already made my decision and you've had your opportunity to present your case. This isn't the time to argue, or if you have a question, I may be able to answer it.
Well, she had been holding this over me, that she was going to say this was just domestic violence when she knew it was an accident for 5 weeks now. And she could have called it in.
Mr. Abbey, that's not a question.
Okay. I just wanted to say something. All right. Thank you.
protection order is in effect until 1 year from today, November 12th of 2025. All right, I've signed the order consistently with my ruling. I'm filing it now with the court clerk. It'll be available to both parties from the court's records at any time.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, you're welcome.
Okay, understood. Thanks, Your Honor.
All right, and did Dolores Carlisle make it up here? Dolores Carlisle? All right. I'm not getting any answer here. Owings? Okay. Yeah, I heard you were on your way here. Okay.
Are you calling me?
What did you say? Yeah, are you Miss Carlisle in the back? Okay, thank you. Yeah, I heard you went down to the courthouse, made your way back up here. Okay, did Paula Archer ever appear?